Hello and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dani, and today Great.com talks with Kathleen Sullivan, the Executive Director of Openhouse. If you haven't heard of them yet, this NGO is based in San Francisco, and they work to overcome the unique challenges that LGBTQ plus seniors face as they age. Before we begin, remember, if you're new here to this podcast, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. Hi, Kathleen, and welcome.
Hey, Dani. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, taking time to talk to us. We were discussing a little bit of the backstage of the podcast before, and we haven't yet talked about this very specific part of our community, right? I think we overlook it so often, and we like to think of our lives as, oh, it's going to be fun and party and all of that. We don't think that's gonna, I think a guest once said, that's the best alternative, right? Getting old is the best alternative that we have.
That's right.
So, I'm really happy to discuss this here today. I usually begin with a very important question, Kathleen, that is about history. I always like to know, when did it all begin? What motivated it? And what were the first challenges that you faced back then?
Yeah, well, thanks again for letting us be here. Open House started as an organization in 1998, but I would say it was actually back in 1973 when our founder, Dr. Marcy Edelman, wrote the first article that showed that aging as a gay man is not a negative thing, that you're not going to be alone, depressed, isolated, that wasn't the experience of older gay men in the Castro district of San Francisco. Years later, 25 years later, 1998, Marcy was just sort of noticing that more and more older adults were moving out of this area, partly because of the dot-com boom. People weren't able to afford their apartments any longer. And she went home and talked to her partner, Jeanette, and said, I want to start an organization that builds housing for LGBT older adults. And that was the first sort of spark that started Open House back in 1998. They had no experience developing housing. They were both therapists. So, sometimes you don't know what it is that you're getting into when you start. And developing affordable housing in San Francisco, as in many cities across the United States, it takes a long time and it takes expertise. And one thing it takes in San Francisco is land, which we're a 7x7 peninsula, 7 miles by 7 miles. So maybe what is that, about 12 kilometers by 12 kilometers? So not a big space. And it took many years actually to find the land to develop. And in that time, what we discovered was there were a lot of community members who didn't have access to support services, didn't have programming that was fun, that would build community. And so we developed really a suite of programs and services that we continue and expand to this day to really create spaces where people can, we say, feel the joy. So we just had prom yesterday, for instance, for our LGBTQ elders. And, it's a time for people to come together, dance, socialize. It was very celebratory.
I loved this idea.
Yeah.
It must have been so much fun.
It was, for sure. We had our first Congo line. It was
Really?
very fun. Yeah, it was great.
Well, that's a mark. Oh, that's awesome. And I'm also so happy to hear about this, because I really am thrilled to hear people like doing things so distant from what they started their lives doing, right? They started as therapists and ended up doing something so meaningful in such a different area. And I feel like this is a huge example that we don't need to be confined to the things that we know how to do to actually create change, right? We need to take the risk. So it's absolutely beautiful to hear their examples. And you already has highlighted some of the issues, right? I believe that we have a knowledge, we have an understanding of what the elders face in a general way. But I wonder if things are different from now from what they were back then? And then, do you feel like there is a difference for the LGBTQ community when they are in an older age?
Yeah, we just finished working on, and we're waiting for the report from the researchers on a study of the aging experience of LGBTQ Californians. And we had over 4,500 people respond to that survey. And what we've learned from that, and then other research that we've done, and just talking to our community members, is a couple of things. One is that long-term survivors of HIV/AIDS have really high levels of isolation. They're having comorbidities that perhaps they wouldn't have had if they didn't have HIV. So diabetes, folks are having heart conditions. There's some cognitive impairment that comes just from the years of taking medication, which is life-saving medication. So there's a whole host of issues that folks who are long-term survivors of HIV are really dealing with. And then on top of that, a lot of them have what's called AIDS survivor syndrome. And that is a depression. It's being re-traumatized as more and more people in the community are passing away. It sort of reminds them of the 80s and early 90s when people were passing away from AIDS. So that's one issue that we really pay attention to. Isolation, as you mentioned earlier, we found that folks who come to our programming consistently over time reduce the level of isolation they have, but also improve their mental health. And that is incredibly important because we find that our programming, whether it's coming to a support group or going to a rainbow lunch, just giving people the opportunity to connect with one another can actually have a huge positive impact on their mental health. And then the other thing I'd say, and I could talk all day about this stuff. I'm actually a gerontologist, so aging is like the thing I'm most into. But I think the other thing I'd really point out is we find that our transgender elders, one, they are really aging at an accelerated rate. So even though they sometimes are much younger, they present as someone who's a little bit older only because of all of the trauma that they've experienced, all the stress they've had in their life. You can imagine constantly having to come out to a provider, medical provider who's giving you care, who doesn't know you. So there's this huge level of stress, also not having stable work, so really having low socioeconomic standards and food insecurity. So we've really crafted programming specifically for our transgender elders. And I'll just say next Friday is our Felicia Flames Intergenerational Transgender Brunch. And we will be hosting probably about 250 people for brunch at the Women's Building here in San Francisco. And it's always a fabulous, fabulous event for youngers and olders to come together and share space, which is another part of something that we really value, intergenerational connection.
Again, another thing that I would love to attend.
Well, next year you'll have to fly over and do it.
Please, I'm buying my ticket. No, but I think this is again beautiful. As you were speaking, I remembered. I think there is a saying or something like that says that to raise a child, it takes a village, right? You need to have these people, and I feel like if we just make an adjustment here and think about younger generations, we need elders in our villages, right?
That's right.
We need to know what they've been through. We need to learn from them, and we need to know how to take care of them. So I see how vital is the work that you do, especially by bringing different generations together. I feel this is paramount. And let's talk about these programs. Like, you got me all hyped up here. I would love to learn more about it. What are your highlights?
Yeah. So, we have three basic pillars of our programming. One is our training and transformation program, which is we have a culture of care training, which works to create more safe space for LGBTQ older adults. So we go out and we do trainings. We actually have an online platform as well, so people can go and get trained online, which is awesome. The second pillar is our community support services. So San Francisco is a very expensive city to live in. A lot of our older adults that participate in our programs, they might have moved into their apartment in the 1970s and it's a 3-floor walk up, and they can't get up and down. from that apartment anymore, but they stay there because it's so inexpensive. And so we have a really robust, what we call housing navigation. So we have a team of 3 staff who really work with older adults in our community to help them find housing that's really going to meet their needs. We also have case managers, and then a really innovative mental health program called Pearls, which helps to bring people who have mild to severe depression, sort of help them to re-engage with their life. And it's all based on cognitive behavioral therapy and really taking small steps to re-engage with your life. And that really helps to lift people out of depression and also helps us to refer people into our 3rd pillar, which is our community engagement programs. And that is everything from our different support groups, whether it's our caregiver support group, we have a women's group, which is really wonderful. We have an HIV long-term survivor support group, or if it's other programming, so things that might be fun. So we teach multiple language classes, for instance. We teach everything from Japanese to Yiddish, if you can believe it, and a lot of things in between, French, Spanish, etc. So people can be involved in those types of educational programs or involved in the arts. So we have a choir, which is really wonderful. And every year we have a big gala called Spring Fling, and our choir sang at the Spring Fling this year, which was precious. It was lovely. I'm so glad they did it. We also have a program called Art with Elders that we coordinate with another nonprofit here in the city. And our community members have had their artwork hung in City Hall, which has been fantastic. And then we also have just socialization programs. So whether it's at Rainbow Lunch or Coffee Klatch or today's Friday, so today's game day, really giving people an opportunity to come together as a community. And of course, we're in Pride right now as we're recording this. And so we just had prom yesterday. We had a wonderful event for Juneteenth, which is a celebration of Black joy. We had that last Sunday, which was a beautiful event. We had wonderful performers. And then, of course, we'll have a contingent at the Pride Parade, and we have a bunch of people marching with us. But then we also have 2 trolleys because some of our community members, they might not be as mobile as they used to be. So they can still wave and laugh and engage people on the parade route. And it really is an enormous amount of fun. And every year we serve just over 3,500 older adults here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it's really, for us, it's our mission is to provide service, to give people an opportunity to really engage with the community, create community. And I think that's the most important thing. A lot of people think of Open House as a series of buildings on our Laguna campus because we do have affordable housing, and we were never building buildings. We were always working to build community. That's the key for Open House.
Wow, I'm baffled with this last sentence. But honestly, I feel it. I've never been to San Francisco, but I have this feeling of a vibrant place, with people really filled with life and joy. And this is the same feeling that I'm getting from what you're describing of Open House. It's not at all like a bunch of buildings, like code buildings and just affordable housing. It's really sounding to me like making families, right? Creating bonds
Yeah.
and make it a warm and safe place for everyone that's either living there or just, visiting, being part of it. So you're doing an amazing job in this mission.
Well, I feel very lucky. I met Marcy Edelman, Dr. Marcy Edelman, when I was a student getting my PhD, and to actually now be working at the organization that she and her partner Jeanette founded. It's a real honor. And it's also the staff at Open House, the team is really amazing. Celia Vargas, who's been on staff for over 10 years, or Matthew Cimino, who's been here as our finance director. And he's so many great connections with people. And our staff is also really diverse. I mean, it's age diverse. We go from age 23 to 81 on our staff, which is incredible. But we also, we really put an emphasis on JEDI, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and making sure that we hire a staff that really reflects the community. I think that's so important for nonprofits in this day and age.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm going to just tell people to go to your page because all of those things that you said, I saw on your page. You can
Cool.
check it out on openhousesf.org. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, go there. We're going to add the link on the description of the episode, and then we can get a perspective of this, understand more what they're doing, get in touch. We're going to cover some of this later. But before going there, Kathleen, I would like to know, what are the next steps for you guys in the near future? What are your plans for the years to come?
Oh, we have a lot of plans. Of course, every nonprofit does. I think that one thing in the United States, and certainly in San Francisco, is that every day 10,000 people turn age 65. And so more and more people are really into needing services, needing social support. And so we really want to make sure that we have the funding to ensure that we have the staff capacity to serve a growing number of people here in San Francisco. One thing that we're doing, and we partnered with a wonderful organization called Mercy Housing, is that next year in April, we will be breaking ground on our third affordable housing building. And it's our largest building yet. It is a 15-story building. It's 185 units of affordable housing for older adults. And it's specifically welcoming and affirming for LGBT elders. So we'll have big community spaces there. We'll actually be expanding our mental health services program for folks in that building. And it's right around the corner from where our two other buildings are. So we're really looking to create a corridor for LGBT elders in this community. So that's really a big push that we have in the coming 2 years or so. And we hope that, we're also able to use our culture of care training to train more and more folks in long-term care. Right now, we know that 2/3 of LGBT elders who live in long-term care, so in the United States, it's called assisted living, but also in nursing homes, don't disclose their sexual orientation or gender identity because they're afraid. They're afraid they'll get substandard care. They're afraid they'll get bullied. And so our job is really to make sure that we can go into those communities and do training and build some sensitivity and humility with the staff and then also the community members that live there. So there are more spaces because we know, Open House can't do it alone. We partner with wonderful organizations and really leverage the resources of other organizations to ensure that our community members are cared for. And then I'd say the other big thing is we have a wonderful partnership with a group called Unlock, and that is for a community day services program. It's for our community members who have some memory impairment issues, have really severe comorbidity, have mobility issues. And if they didn't have this opportunity to come to Open House, they would be isolated in their apartments, or we have something called SROs, single room occupancy apartments. And the partnership is really wonderful because it provides transportation so people can come to Open House. They get meals while they're here, really wonderful programming. And, it's queer. So we don't like coming to the community day services. So we worked with our community members that were involved, and they call it Club 75. So they go to the club every day. They don't go to community day services. And it was really great when we brought in a new board member, and she said, the difference I've seen at Open House is people are having fun and there's a sense of joy. And I think that's really true, is that we really embrace the community and our community members embrace us back. And so those are the big things that we have that we're working on now and are going to propel us for the next few years.
Again, you got me hyped up. But
we need to get you out here.
I feel like it. Like what I'm doing. No, no.
Yeah.
No, but really, it's amazing to see this, and those are wonderful plans. And know that you guys are planning to build more units. It's something I often say that many organizations say that, oh, our dream is to run out of a job, right? But I feel like what you guys have been building there, it could, instead of running out of a job, turn into something different, right? Turning to maybe keep mashing into society, and then it doesn't have to be something so separated in a sense. So yeah, I'm really happy to hear this. And then I gotta ask you how because you mentioned partnerships, right? But
Yeah.
how we listening to you right now can help you guys achieve all of those things in the future.
Yeah, well, we talked earlier about volunteers, and I'll say volunteers are really the backbone of the work that we do at Open House. We have just over 40 staff, but like I said, we serve over 3,500 San Franciscans every year. So our volunteers are really vital. So if people are in the Bay Area and want to have a great volunteer experience, we have something called a Friendly Visitor Program, and we pair people with one older adult, and it just allows for a touchstone. It's a personal relationship that develops over time. And we've been expanding that in the last couple of years. Or if people just have time to come to an event, we actually do something called a home delivered grocery program every Wednesday and use Waymo cars, which are these automated cars, to deliver groceries to 90 folks throughout the San Francisco area. So if people have time for that, but people can go on the website, and if they can volunteer, that would be fabulous. We're also, like I said, building this big building, and that involves a capital campaign. So if people want to make a contribution, small or large, every little bit really helps us to make sure that we have the space we need and the staff we need to serve our community as best we can, and quite frankly, in the way that they deserve.
Kathleen, thank you so very much for joining us today. I loved this conversation. It was great.
It's my pleasure. It is so nice to talk to you, and I can't wait to host you here at Open House when you visit San Francisco.
Watch out with your promises.
There you go.
And also, thank you for everyone that is listening or watching us on YouTube right now. Thank you for staying with us for one more episode. And remember, if you like this episode, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that helps us to spread the word. Share it with your friends and your family and everyone you feel like can profit from this conversation. And then we can show everyone the importance of this beautiful, beautiful organization. Thank you so much for joining, and I see you in the next episode. And hey, check out their page, all right? Don't forget, don't miss that. Don't miss Open House. Bye, guys, and I see you in the next episode.
Thank you.